I'm a Danny, and no one Danny like the Danny. Stephen waits for the mail to arrive at the base of the hill leading to his house, singing the song until Jamie the mailman arrives.
Do you have a package for me today?
Jamie either messes with Stephen or is incompetent, but gives the boy a package in the end. Stephen explains how he's not allowed to be on missions because gem magic or some nonsense, but he still wants to help. Bright light shines out from the house, signaling that the gems are back from wherever they were. Amethyst tries to fit a giant egg in the fridge. Garnet has feathers in her hair, and Pearl holds a statue which they just retrieved from a giant bird. But they're not here for long. They need to place the moon goddess statue on the top of the sea spire before midnight. Pearl shows Stephen using holograms. Stephen offers to be a pack mule with his brand new cheeseburger backpack. Pearl says no at first, but Stephen insists and Amethyst advocates.
I'm a gem!
Doesn't take much for her to break down and end up saying yes.
All right.
Stephen gets excited and packs his bag with other essentials, like Mr. Queasy in favor of the first aid pack. He stuffs it so full that he's barely able to fit on the mysterious pad at the back of his house.
Back that thing up.
Turns out that's a warp pad, made to transport them using light. Stephen almost floats out of the stream, but they do make it to the second warp pad. We see the sea tree spire, and it's not doing too hot, but at least the waterfalls are pretty. And Pearl stresses the importance of the spire to see.
This place is your heritage. You've really got to take this seriously.
You got it, dude!
A gravitational whirlpool prevents them from jumping to the entrance, but Stephen has the idea to swing across by ruining his sweaters. Amethyst swings the others across, and Pearl scolds Stephen, but clearly all three of them approve of his quick thinking.
But it was pretty great.
Pearl continues to agonize over the state of the spire, and they come across some things called crystal shrimp scattered all over the floor. They move slow, but Pearl insists.
Don't touch that! Their shards are deadly!
Very sharp and deadly. She forms a complex plan to get past them. But Stephen thinks like a shrimp.
You are a shrimp.
Stephen simply slings some snacks smartly. Sorry. As they continue down the hall, a wall crashes down, letting in a heavy current of water with no way across. Amethyst sees a pattern and starts cheering for Stephen's backpack. She even gets Pearl to join.
All right.
Cheeseburger backpack! Cheeseburger
Stephen
backpack!
searches the bag for a solution, and voila! A raft. We even got to see him pack that earlier in the episode. Unfortunately, the plan's a bust when the raft hits the water and is carried away. It's okay. Garnet has a backup plan.
Good idea anyway, Stephen.
They arrive at the top of the spire, so no. Time to put the statue on the moon goddess pedestal.
And the moon is almost overhead.
But wait, Stephen can't find it. He forgot the statue! Thinking fast, he grabs Mr. Queasy and puts it on the pedestal. What? She was just napping a second ago. Can you chill out? It seems to work. Until the moon goddess realizes that this visage is super insulting and explodes it with her wrath. The sea spire collapses, killing our heroes and ending the series. So thank you for joining me in this wonderful but short-lived... Oh, they're alive! They resurface and Stephen apologizes. The gems, ever supportive, forgive him.
You handled everything well under pressure.
And Amethyst encourages him to look on the bright side.
2 out of 4 of your ideas worked! That's 50%!
Yeah.
All that's left now is the paddle home since the warp pad sank, stanky, rank, lank, shank, pank. Since the spire's warp pad sank.
Cheeseburger backpack! Cheeseburger backpack!
It's a 3-hour paddle home.
I'm starting to sense a theme in these resolutions. Stephen keeps on apologizing.
This is all my fault! I broke it!
Even when things aren't his fault. Okay, yes, it was his fault this time. But think of the last 2 episodes. It wasn't his fault that Cookie Cat didn't activate his gem powers, and it wasn't his fault that he didn't know how to activate the laser like his. Take a break, Stebert!
The spire was falling apart when we got here.
Cheeseburger backpack! I have one! It's the best! I take it everywhere! This video is not sponsored! Please sponsor me. I don't know whether Jamie is messing around with Steven or really is incompetent with his job. It seems at first like it's the former, but in a few episodes we'll learn that Jamie really isn't a great postman. The warp pad makes its first appearance. Yeah, no one ever really talks about how it works, so I've kind of got to put it together myself.
Do you remember how to do this?
It seems like the warp pads act like links between each other, kind of building light-based wormholes. But you can't get to the other side unless there's a warp pad on the other side, too. The destination must be thought-based because I don't see any buttons. And there seems to be a space outside of the warp. We briefly see outside and it's completely black. Mr. Queasy!
Kid, don't shake me!
Mr. Queasy!
Alright, I guess we're doing bellies again. Who in their right mind would want a toy that is constantly complaining that it's about to throw up? It makes me nauseous just thinking about it.
Kid, you're killing me!
I can even imagine the toy itself, like it has a ball inside of it that activates something. I don't know how. I'm not an electrician. And those are pretty heavy. No wonder the pedestal was almost full. Okay, you caught me. I want one. While we're at it, I want to know what the moon had to do with the sea spire. Yeah, I get that the moon and the tides are connected. Avatar taught me that. But the moon doesn't give the ability for buildings to stay standing or water to make whirlpools. Wait, does it? Does the moon make whirlpools? I'm not a physicist or an oceanologist or a moon scientist.
All right, hold on.
Pearl is making a case for someone that is difficult to get along with. She seems overbearing and maybe even whiny at times.
Oh, and this had a head.
About Steven's heritage and the state of the spire. And yet, she's an essential figure in Steven's upbringing. Without Pearl, Steven would have no awareness of his own mortality. Pearl may present as anxious and overcautious, but she also tells us the most stuff that we learn about the world.
In its heyday, it was an oasis for gems on Earth.
Garnet and Amethyst aren't about to describe what's wrong with crystal shrimp, so I'm glad that there's someone to explain the nuances of gems.
You've still got a lot to learn.
So cheers to the preachy teachers and the helicopter parents for their expositional explanations.
Woo!
This is Steven's first ever mission. Isn't that exciting? Pearl pretty easily broke down. They didn't even have to ask Garnet. They finally trust him with the responsibility of joining them. So he gets to experience the gem world the same way that they've been experiencing his world. But he failed. Doesn't that mean they shouldn't take him on missions? I don't think the gems see it that way. I think that this mission was important, but not essential. No rampaging monsters, no city or civilians in danger.
It's abandoned now.
Pearl turns everything into a learning opportunity. Amethyst is supportive through the whole thing, and Garnet's always ready with the backup plan. Even when he fails, Amethyst sees the glass as half full.
Yeah.
This was the perfect first mission for Steven. It kind of feels like Trials as they move through. Like Dora the Explorer made this episode's map. We have to get the statue to the top of the tower! We have to swing across the whirlpool of gravity and distract the maggots of sharpness! Do you see any maggots?
Hey, Mr. Postman, bring me a post. Bring me the post that I love the most.
Steven predicts the future with this song. He sings it and the postman magically appears. This, of course, symbolizes how one's expectations can always feed into the results of that which they are expecting, informing this. Okay, I'm kidding. This episode doesn't really have a song, and that's going to happen sometimes. I'm not going to have a Gem Jams for every episode. But I am for this one. Let's talk theme song.
Are the crystal gems?
This is the shortened version of a much longer song I'd like to discuss in the future. It opens with the gems glowing magically, introducing us to both the gems and their gems. But then one ruffles Steven's hair and we get the sense that he is seen as a child compared to the rest. Then we get to see a brief shot of the boardwalk as Greg speeds towards the beach to meet the others for a barbecue. We even see Connie and the donut peeps reacting to Greg's van. Then it ends with Steven eating a hot dog. A classic callback. Call forward? Call sideways? to Greg's catchphrase.
If every pork chop were perfect, we wouldn't have hot dogs.
In universe, Steven was the one who wrote this song, which brings new meaning to the lyrics. He is confident in the gem's ability to save the day from evil, and he considers himself to be one of the crystal gems, despite their treating him like a child. You know, because he acts like a child.
I want you to stay and help, but you've really got to take this seriously.
It's interesting that Steven brings up wanting to fight evil when he's immediately fallen in love with every enemy so far.
Awesome!
Not awesome.
Time for the ranking. Characters. I already defended Pearl this episode, and she even seems to grow a little bit by the end. She's initially hesitant to have Steven join them, but by the third obstacle, she's cheering along with Amethyst. I also love how passionate she is about Steven's education. And for Steven's part, he proves himself useful for missions, if not 100% reliable. Let's give him an 8. World. We get to see the gem world for the first time in this episode. We learn that there are other temples aside from the one that's in Steven's home. The Sea Spire, for one, was once used as
An oasis for gems on Earth.
Also the warp pads we get to see for the first time. And Pearl's unique gem ability. Let's give him another 8. Plot. The existence of the Sea Spire gets questions flowing immediately. When were the gems here
How
last?
long ago was it a community?
Is it in disrepair because of
Or because of
time?
the scary
Or because of the
whirlpool?
lack of the statue? Unfortunately, these questions have very little to do with furthering the plot, so I can't give it a high score. Even if they do serve to further the interest in the world. 5. You know what? 6. Art and animation. The art's getting better and better. Now instead of looking misshapen or stretched out, the faces look like older cartoons, kind of like Tom and Jerry. For example, when they blink, the eyelids seem separate from their faces. It's not a bad thing, just an observation. It makes it feel like a real Cartoon Network show. 8. Gasm factor. This episode's not all that special. It feels like a standard quest chapter. Say 5.
Dang, Steven, that's so cool! But this is obviously important gem business!
Hey, welcome to the end of the video. Usually I try to update every other week, but it just so happens that some appropriate episodes land in October. It's what I like to call the Season 1 horror trilogy. But you know, like cartoon horror. So, starting on October 14th, I'm going to be updating every week up until Halloween. That's 3 episodes in a row. Together Breakfast, Frybo, and Cat Fingers. And if those don't sound like very scary titles, you're probably a normal human. Get ready!